coming out. Make sure you definitely sign the QR code because we're going to send that roster for the co-curricular credit. You had a quiz. How many 2 PDs are in here today? And then what about ones? Nice. So 2 PDs had a nice quiz this morning. Hope you did well. I remember doing those. And yeah, so I wanted to first talk about annual. We went to Washington, D.C. for the annual conference this last October, actually, and it was bad timing school-wise, but we had a great time. I want to show you a little minute clip before we get started. And this video is 8 minutes long because we just had so much. I had over 2 hours of footage, so you guys can check this video out later if you want. We had about 8 of us go, and it was mainly over the weekend, so next year people can definitely just take it over the weekend and not have to miss much school for most of the conference itself. And then afterwards we were able to go tour a little bit of DC, and that's later on in the video. You're not going to get to see that. But there's great speakers, great pharmacy owners there, and also students from other organizations, NCPA like ours. So we had a blast, and all the guys who went can testify. Hey, if you went to the conference in this room, raise your hand. Okay, nice. So they know. They know. Okay. So next, I want to talk about our upcoming elections. We have a bunch of leadership opportunities actually in this organization, and they're coming up fast. They're on the 19th, and. One second. Okay, so I'm going to start with President-elect. Basically, as President-elect Trey, you can go ahead and stand up real quick. So Trey's the President-elect, and you basically get to explore your interest in independent pharmacy. You get to develop a team with the president. I was the president last year, and you get to push the UF chapter forward and develop lifelong friendships with the whole executive team. You really get to work on your team building, your leadership, your perspective, and your networking. Next, our Vice President, Julian. Go ahead and stand up so everybody can see you. Julian gets to play a key position with the President and the President-elect. And he gets to help team build. He gets to help with communication and idea innovation, so you get to practice those skills. Karina, our Treasurer, you can go ahead and stand up. As a treasurer for us, you get to explore financial responsibility. You get to implement strategy and fundraising based off of your experiences. So you really get to learn those things. Our historian, Justin, where's Justin? Go ahead and stand up. So with being a historian, you get to capture, explore photography to expose our group to the student body. And you also get to practice summarizing events that we do, as in meeting minutes for student council and for future use. And check him out. He has a GoPro right now for this meeting, so that's really cool. Stephanie Hang with the communications chair. Where's Stephanie? Okay, go ahead and stand up. So, and here you get to learn how to use social media and become a better networker and help spread our group throughout the body as well. Ike, yeah, he's back there. Student council, he gets to get information from all of us. Summarize it, put it in a nice format, and present it to the student council. So that's a great position with communication organization practice. Our operations chair, Ian, go ahead and stand up. You get to help communicate with the upcoming speakers that we have and help with room reservations, so you get good practice in that stuff. And Mark, is he here today? Yeah, so Mark, you get legislative chair. You get to actually learn and develop your awareness for legislative ventures that are going out there in regards to pharmacy. And you actually provide a voice for our student body. We're still working on sending it out before the end of the year, but you get to provide a voice from our body here at UF to legislator on some type of idea that you have or a bill that you want to talk about. And then Solomia, you stand up. business plan chair. This is a huge role, especially for this upcoming year. In this role, you're going to be basically the leader in the position. You're going to develop a team. You're going to help steer and direct everybody towards doing this huge plan, trying to make it to annual, and trying to get this business plan passed. So with the business plan chair, you actually get great leadership training and business practice that you can really, if you're interested in independent pharmacy or owning your own business, it would be a great thing to do right now. I want to say thank you to all of the team. You guys have done a lot this year and really helped us get off the ground, and I really appreciate every single one of you. And I wanted to show some retreat pics because we had some nice retreats, just real quick. So here's a nice picture when we got brought together. Our 2 words we focused on this year was teamwork and communication, and I say we'd have a good time doing that. This was us in Mobley's compounding lab. Come on. We actually went to the local, I forgot the name of it, but we had Ike and Karina Ike and Stephanie being crazy, taking a selfie with the gator, and showing the spunk of the team. And just another picture of the group on the little end of the trail. What is that called again? Yeah, Painesburg. Look. And then we had a great time going to my parents' place on the river and stuff like that, and got to ski and stuff. So next I want to introduce Jim Springer and Joe Burghardt. Jim Springer, a graduate with a BS degree in business administration at Indiana University. He majored in marketing and management and now provides advisory services for buyers and sellers of pharmacies and students like us who are interested in that. And Joe Burghardt, he is a 1978 graduate of the University of Rhode Island. He has a pharmacy degree and also has a master's of administration business degree. He's worked in hospital administration and hospital pharmacy, and then he actually owned a pharmacy, Flagler Community Pharmacy, which he just sold, and he's going to tell us more about that. So please welcome them to the stage.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. Plug me in.
Thank you all.
Beam me up.
Scotty. I think this will control it now, and this is yours.
This will control it. Is it legitimate?
It's legitimate.
While he's trying to get this thing going, you guys don't know how lucky you are to be involved with a group like this. This NCPA chapter, the way I look at it and what I tell students all the time, yesterday I ran into a lot of students at career days, and one of the things I talked about was they need to be involved, whether they made the decision or whether you made the decision that entrepreneurship is definitely going to be your career choice. Regardless, what a great opportunity this is to really begin to separate for yourself. You know, is this something I'm interested in? Is this something that I love? And if so, you pursue it. If not, you know, you go in another direction. But your leadership team is excellent. I mean, they're excellent. And the things that you learn here and the things you're going to be exposed to really will be a springboard for you going forward in your career. I will tell you this, and this is a question I get asked all the time, usually by P4s. And when it was at the Washington, D.C. annual meeting, NCPA annual meeting, if I was asked it once, I was probably asked it, and I'm not exaggerating, 25 or 30 times. And it's, okay, what happens and what does the process look like? How do I get into this thing called entrepreneurship once I graduate? You know, there's this fear and trepidation that once you walk away from here, all of a sudden, there's no support mechanism. There's nothing left for you, and you're on your own, which is the furthest thing from the truth. But the reality is, based on the number of times I was asked that question, is there is this void out there. And that's kind of one of the things that Joe and I are going to try to do today, is talk about, you know, entrepreneurship from certainly from Joe's perspective, and that's, we always talk about why you need to get into the business, the benefits, the rewards, the things that are there and available to you as an owner of your own business. But rarely do we kind of look at it from the back end of the life cycle. Like, if you've got this business that you hope to have for 25 or 30 years, the equity that you build in that business, you know, will that be enough for you to be able to retire on it? You know, those of us who are fortunate enough to work for a Fortune 5 company like myself, you know, we got a great 401k and outstanding program through Mckesson Corporation. So, you know, I can look back, you know, when my time comes to retire, that I've got enough to be able to retire on and feel comfortable that I can live the rest of my life with a reasonably nice quality of standard of living. It's not always that way with small business owners, but in the drugstore business, if you work hard, if you be successful, you build that equity in your business. And what, you know, Joe's going to allude to and talk about a lot is, what's that end game? What does that look like? Which is kind of a unique view of entrepreneurship, because we always talk about the front end and not necessarily about the back end. So we're going to talk a little bit about both, to be honest with you. And I thought what I would do is, I'm locked out again. And I only have 4 slides that I wanted to show you, and only because I wanted to frame up for you the things that are going on. Those of you who went to NCPA in Washington, D.C., saw and heard a lot of this. Just close that out. It's my internal communicator, just the X right there in the corner.
You have a press.
Here.
I'm a Mac user.
There.
Yeah, so this button right here.
And that. Now we are.
There's a laser on the top.
Okay. So, arrow to the right?
Yes.
Really? Really? Okay, I'll use the old-fashioned way. I did want to talk a little bit about the industry, because there's some really interesting dynamics, some interesting things going on as it affects independent drugs, as it affects, frankly, everybody. Doctors, pharmacists, everybody in the healthcare industry are affected by these dynamics. I mean, there's a ton of things going on, but when you look at it from a global perspective, I mean, there's 61,036 retail pharmacies nationwide, of which independents have a 15% share of the market. You can see in the middle there, that little pie chart. Chains occupy 39% of the market, the lion's share of the business, when you look at pharmacy specifically. And then you look at the change in total prescription business, and you're looking at, again, chain domination in terms of growth at 10.9%. And you look at that independent segment, and you see that minus 1.6, which is obviously a concern for all of us involved in the independent segment of our business. And the one key piece in this whole slide, as far as I'm concerned, is the one down at the bottom. And that dynamic happened so quickly, it was unbelievable. In the last 2 to 3 years, this thing went from 0 to 87%. That the payers have figured out that for them to be able to improve their profit scenarios and reduce the reimbursements at retail, that they created these things called limited networks, narrow networks, preferred networks. And what those do is it assumes that you as a provider, you as a business owner, a pharmacy owner, are going to do the adherence, compliance, and the medication therapy management necessary to ensure that your patients take their medications. That's the fundamentals of that, is that you have to do that. The Mckessons, the Silver Scripts, all of those contracts that require NTM interventions, that those pharmacies who do it are in those networks. And there's the belief and the dream that someday there will be some reward there for those pharmacies that are doing it. I truly believe that that's going to be the case. That as the industry sees that by doing the work that we do, the quality of our work, if we can keep people out of hospitals, if we can keep them out of long-term care facilities, that's bound to reduce the cost of healthcare. And when that happens, when that's documented, there's going to be some rewards out there for those who are a part of this. And the reverse of that is, if you're not a part of that, if you're not in those limited networks, if you're not doing the MTM, if you're just doing what you always have done, and you're filling prescriptions and putting on the labels and getting your traditional reimbursement, you're not going to be in business very long, because that's not what pharmacy is going to be about. Reimbursements for you in that type of a scenario are going to continue to go downward, okay? They're going to continue to slide down. Gross profits within independent pharmacy are nearing the 20% level now. They, according to the NCPA Profit Digest that they passed out at the meeting in Washington, D.C., they're sitting at 23.8% on an average, but I see profit and loss statements. If I see one, I see maybe 6 or 7 every day from those folks who are buying and or selling. And those gross profits are in the 20% category, the majority of them. So that is that's a huge thing going on right now. And one of the challenges and one of the opportunities for independents. Now, why do I say it's an opportunity? Because I think it separates you from the chain. It separates you. We can make it maybe reverse some of those other dynamics in terms of number of scripts. We could reverse that. Why do I say that? Because the consumer has always believed that the most trusted professional has always been the independent pharmacy owner. That it's been for years and years and years that's been the case. So you take that advantage and you put that into your business plan, and you take advantage of the fact that those patients want to consult with you. They're looking for you to help them. So your skills and your ability to influence them and manage their adherence and compliance literally will become your success. And I think that's going to separate you guys, the independent pharmacy owners, from the chain stores. And it already is, to be quite frank with you. It already is. The chains only could dream and wish that they had the same relationships with their patients that the independent pharmacy owner has. Plus the fact that you're so nimble, the fact that you can make changes tomorrow without, and the corporations can't, is also one of the advantages for an independent pharmacy owner. And you can be much more flexible than the chains are. You can do the compounding, the specialty, the DME, the home health care, all of those things that perhaps they can't. So that really, in my mind, it becomes a competitive advantage. So we got all these folks that are in Medicare Part D, going through the process as we speak. We've got a ton of prescriptions out there for the seniors. We've got this one piece here that always scares you, is that 85% of those seniors say that as their copay tends to rise, that's when they start shopping for other pharmacies. And they're not very brand loyal. And that's a concern to us, because that's certainly an opportunity for us to be able to support independent pharmacy owners and ensure that senior approach to drive profitability. And that's exactly what I was alluding to earlier, is that no more are we going to rely on reimbursements from payors. No more are we going to really rely on those external forces to drive our profit. It's up to us. The more we take care of the patient, the more those patients rely on us, the more those limited networks will have an opportunity to reward us for the work that we do, for the high quality work that we do. So that's going forward where this business is going. And as you think about opening up a brand new business, let me get off of this. As you think about opening up a brand new business, those are things that you truly have to think about, is what do I do? What does my business plan look like? How do I differentiate myself from those chains and from everybody else in the marketplace? It's going to involve you're having to study that market, to know what the competitors are doing. Even more importantly, what are they not doing? And then at the same time, you're studying the demographics of that marketplace. You're in full understanding of what's happening. What are the trends within the market that you're trying to serve? Is it becoming more aged? Is it becoming younger? Becoming more families? And that's going to dictate your business plan. So you're really going to have to dig deep into what does this market look like over the course of the last 3, 5, 10 years and forward. And based on that, that's going to drive your business plan. Obviously, it's becoming more aged, if it is, and maybe a little that are making a little less money. So that's going to drive the fact that maybe if no one else is in home health care or no one else is in DME, those are the kinds of things you may want to think about. It's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. So today, what I wanted to do was really bring Joe on and let Joe, from a owner's perspective, tell you first of all how you get into this thing. I talked earlier about that void out there. You know, what does this process look like? Believe me, there's numbers of ways that you can get into entrepreneurship. There's not one clear-cut path. There are many. And that's why I suggested to you, use the tools that are available to you. You know, be a sponge. You know, network as much as you can, as often as you can during these 4 years. You got people like me. You had Dan Benamos making a presentation here recently to you. You know, you need to know who these people are because they can be important to you. They know lots of other people. I'll give you a real life story, what I mean by that. And I tell this all the time, almost every talk I give to students. And it's the fact that this one stands out in my mind because the student came from here. Jose Puentes came from here. And years ago when he was a P2, he sat in this audience and saw my presentation, came up to me afterwards, introduced himself, said, man, I really do want to be an entrepreneur. And we talked. I took his business card. He had made up a business card, so I took it, stuck it in my pocket. P3, saw him at career day, came over, talked to me. P4, same thing. And then after graduation, what was interesting is that I had just received a phone call from a friend of mine who owned a drugstore in Miami, and that's where Jose lived, and was looking to partner with somebody. And this friend of mine said, you know, Jim, I've been in my business now for 5 or 6 years. I'm looking to expand, and I'm going to open up a second pharmacy. And I thought, you know what would really be cool is if you could find me a student who just recently graduated, who's really passionate about entrepreneurship, I'll take that individual and I'll train him for a year or two, and I'll put him in store number 2, give him a piece of the action and let him run it. And I said, I got a guy. And Jose, 10 minutes later, I swear to you, I get a phone call and he's checking in on, you know, what's going on? Jim, have you heard anything? And you're not going to believe this, but I just heard from an owner in Miami who's looking for somebody like you, and guess what? I gave him your name. Well, here we sit today, and that young man owns a drugstore in West Palm Beach. He's doing compounding, doing retail. He broke away from that owner to do his own thing by himself. He's been involved in ownership now for, I believe, 5 or 6 years. But that's an example of what I mean. That's an example of what can happen. But in order for that to happen, you've got to open those doors. And the only way that that can happen is through your networking, doing things like this, you know, being a sponge, learning, you know, checking out the opportunities. Make sure you've covered all of your options. But, you know, just make sure that you haven't left the stone unturned. And that's my lesson for today. But now to kind of set the stage for Joe. Joe's been, I brought in his resume. Joe has, besides being a friend, Joe has, and a customer. Joe's been retired now for not even a year. Not even a year. And already looks much more relaxed, by the way, than he ever did when he owned the pharmacies. He owned these Flagler pharmacies, very unique, especially one of them, very unique, and I'll let him tell you about it. But he's been in he was in that business for 15 years. St. Augustine, Florida, 2 pharmacies, St. John's Pharmacy and Flagler Pharmacy. This thing down. Then prior to that, he worked for a group that I was very familiar with called Pavilion Plaza. It's the Baptist outpatient retail pharmacies in Jacksonville. And he was director of pharmacy for those. And Rich alluded to his background, education background. But needless to say, this young man is very knowledgeable. What I really love about Joe is he just, you know, he has no passion at all for this business. You're going to see when he comes up and talks to you, you know, that it's like, dear Lord, where does he get this energy from? And that's what I love about him is that. But what we really thought we would do is, again, kind of talk about, you know, how do you get into this thing? how do you get in this thing called entrepreneurship? What are some of those paths to get in it? And then, again, from a real world perspective, and then kind of look at that end game too. Look at that end game and focus on that a little bit. Like, is this the kind of business that, if I do my thing and I'm successful, what does it look like? When I say I want to retire and I want to sell, can I feel comfortable that I've got opportunities for my family to enjoy the fruits of our labor for the rest of our lives? So that's kind of what we wanted to do today, and we've got, it looks like about a half hour or so left in order to do that. So let me bring Joe on, and what I want to do is kind of prompt him, first of all, to kind of talk that front end piece.
Okay.
How did you get into this thing called entrepreneurship? I know you've never looked back, and you appreciated it all along the way, but how did you get into it? And maybe kind of talk to them about some of those unique things that had to happen and kind of fell into place for you so that you could say, I'm an owner.
All right, first question. How many people were in Jacksonville this weekend? Made it back safely? Good stories? Good result. Game wasn't the best result, but we had a W is a W. As Jim said, I am not a University of Florida graduate. I had two, my son and daughter both graduated from here. One daughter came here for one semester. She wasn't comfortable being around 40,000 of her closest friends, so she ended up going back there. None of them decided to go into pharmacy, so that's why I am here talking to you as opposed to working for my son or daughter at this point in time. Format for today. I've been married for 33 years, so I'm used to being interrupted. So anytime you have a question, just throw the hand up and we'll stop it right there. Jim said 1978 graduate, University of Rhode Island. That makes me old. We graduated, we went 5 years only, and we were able to do the first 2 years in a community college. None of this 4-year, get your undergraduate degree and then go back and get your pharmacy, your PharmD. So this whole concept of P1, 2, 3, and 4 is relatively new to me. So on that note, how many? And there's two big things you got to do. You've got to prospect and you got to prepare. And as P1s and P2s and 3s and 4s, we'll talk about kind of that more end game of your education as we get towards the end. But the first thing you got to do, you got to prospect. You got to know what's out there. A good place to start is P1s, P2. You guys get your summers off still, right? You don't have to do any of those rotations yet. Great opportunity to go into your community. Go pull out the phone book. Where are your independent owners? And pop in and say hello to them. Introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm a pharmacy student. At some point in time, I'd like to own my own pharmacy. Mind if I come work for you this summer? Even volunteer. Get an idea of it. It's a great thing. You go in and you do that with 2 or 3 different people because you get to see different operations. And more importantly, you're getting the word out that you want to go ahead. But get to know these kind of folks. The people in your community, the surrounding area. I don't mean just like in just in Gainesville or Tallahassee or any place like that, but 10, 15, 20 miles from your home. Know who your owners are, get around to see them, drop your business card or a resume off, let them know, because you never know. These guys may be sitting there and they don't have a succession plan in place, and the fact that you came in may trigger something for them right away. Then as you move forward, after you've had those 2 summers off between, and now you're a 3 and a 4, you've got to do, what are they called, rotations? Yeah, I was I guess, the funny thing is I'm still classified as an assistant professor here. I had a community pharmacy management rotation in Florida, at Flagler. I sold the store, but I still get the stuff from the University of Florida. They still think I'm a professor, so, and I can still get into various places with my badge too. So nobody tell them. But, so you start these rotations, and you have certain ones that are mandatory, right? And you have certain ones that are optional. As you're looking at those rotations, my thing is, if you have the opportunity to do a rotation in a community pharmacy, do it. Even if it's a clinical type of I got excited. I have a question to answer. If you can go to a community pharmacy, even though it may be a clinical type of a rotation, you still have the opportunity to talk to that individual about business. You can't talk about ACE inhibitors and calcium channel blockers all the time. It gives you an opportunity. You're in front of a business owner. Ask them about marketing. Ask them about advertising. Ask them about the profit and loss statement, if they'll share that with you and things like that. A good opportunity for you to interact and find out a little bit more about the business. And by you showing interest to these individuals, ask them to introduce you to their colleagues, the other people who are out in the community. Ask them to take you to the local pharmacy association meetings. Again, networking. It's kind of a buzzword, but it really does mean a lot. Because what you want to get is you want your name out there, you want your face out there. So you get through school, and let's see, did I cover everything here? This is what happens when you get old. Excuse me a second here. Make sure I covered everything. Yeah, we got it all. Okay. So now the reality. You come out of school. It's very unlikely that you have a situation where you're going to go to school, come out, and you're going to take over your uncle's business, your father's business, your mother's business, something like that. Except for maybe have Trey. He's an example of somebody. We get into prospecting of some personal experience of what I ran into. Trey would have been a roadblock to me, and I'll talk about that in a second. But there's a good succession plan right there. But more likely, you're going to get out and you're going to go work someplace. You're going to work maybe in a hospital. You're going to work for a chain drugstore, and that's not a bad thing. Because while you're doing that, you can then repeat that whole prospecting. You've had the experience now. You go out into the community. Now you're maybe not working in your hometown. Maybe you're working in Tallahassee, God forbid, or some other nicely populated area where you're very comfortable in living and stuff like that. And you say, I can make this a home, man. I wouldn't mind settling down here. Okay, start the prospecting again. Go out to the independent owners. See what's going on. Go to the trade association meetings, the Florida Pharmacy Association meetings, the local pharmacy association meetings where they maybe just countywide and stuff like that. Get your name out, and you want to keep in contact then also with your college of pharmacy, because they're going to hear from time to time people who might be different alumni that may be wanting to sell or thinking about retiring and things like that. NCPA, great venue when you decide you're going to go to the meetings there. They and circulate around and network, and then just people start putting two and two together that maybe you want to be an owner, and this is the way you can go ahead and get into it. And of course, the RX ownership program. I got to put a shameless plug in for that. I'm not, by the way, I'm no association with Mckesson at all. Are you supposed to do those kind of disclosures and stuff like that? No, okay. But they have an excellent program of putting together buyers and sellers. Excellent. NCPA does also. Don't have any. I've heard through the grapevine. I've experienced the RX ownership aspect. That's what we kind of went through with that when we did ours. So while you're prospecting, what do? And the main thing is just kind of assess the situation. You walk on in there, and you ask to talk to the owner or the pharmacist, and a guy comes out from behind the counter, and he has white hair. All right, good. We got us a prospect because he's getting close to retirement age. How do you ask, by the way, you just can't ask how old are you. A real easy way of doing it is ask what year they graduated from pharmacy school. I graduated in 1978, and by the way, I'm 60 years old. So that kind of gives you your way of going ahead and gauging it. And then you can also assess the situation by looking at who else is working there. Do you have other pharmacists working for you? How old are they? Because then if they have another pharmacist working for them, they may or may not have already started the process to transfer the ownership to them. And of course, if you walk on in there and you say, "Hey, I'm a pharmacy student. I'm interested about coming to work and maybe owning a pharmacy at some point in time," and the owner says, "Well, by the way, here's my son Trey, and he's going to be taking over the business." Guess what? Wouldn't waste too much more time there. That's probably not going to happen. But the biggest thing is networking, and sooner or later you're going to find something. They are out there, and I'm going to tell you at the end game why it's worth your while to be looking for those opportunities. That's prospecting. Now it's prepare. What do you have to do to prepare yourself to doing this? There's two big aspects here, and I was kind of deciding which way to go first, so I'm going to hit on the most important one, financial. I got your attention in a hurry. Unless I'm wrong, pharmacy students leave pharmacy school with a fair amount of debt, in most cases. it is absolutely essential that you get rid of that debt. And get rid of that debt as fast as you can. Because unless you've got a rich uncle, or hit the lottery, or play FanDuel or something like that and strike it rich, you're going to need to get a loan from somebody to buy this pharmacy or buy into the pharmacy. And if you're sitting out there with a home mortgage and a big student loan, they ain't going to touch you. I know of one instance up in Jacksonville where an individual was trying to buy a pharmacy recently and got turned down because of student loan. Sitting out there, that big nugget that's sitting out there. The other one thing is, 3 words for you: save, save, and save. I know that the tendency when you get out of school is that you really want to go ahead and start, maybe going out and saying, I got a reunion coming back up here. It's homecoming week. I want to show up there in my new Mercedes. You got to start making those decisions. If you're passionate about owning a pharmacy and you're focused on that, you cannot go out and buy that Mercedes even though you want to. Maybe a Volkswagen or something smaller. Something that, I'm not saying scrimp, but be wise, be smart. Buy a used one versus a new one. But these are examples, and these are personal examples of what we went through. And you've always got to keep. I should have used crayon or something. Oh yeah, that's right. Believe it or not, I am on target here. Let me give you the personal experience going through this financial stuff. I knew very early on that I eventually wanted to own a pharmacy. When I started pharmacy school, I knew that I eventually wanted to own a pharmacy. It took me a while to get there. I mean, that was 1978. I bought the pharmacy in 2001. Who can do the math? That's 23 years. It's 23 years of savings before we were able to get to that point. And a little bit of some different divergence down the wrong career path, but we won't go into that too much there, but it wasn't always in pharmacy stuff. My wife and I agreed that this would be something that we wanted to do. We eventually wanted to own a pharmacy, or in our case, it was a part owner, it was a partnership. So we made the conscious effort to say, we're going to need money for a down payment. We're going to need some capital to make this work. So we adjusted our lifestyle. We were the Toyota family. Toyota Corollas for everybody. Used Toyota Corollas. The first brand new car we bought was the year 2007, a Honda CR-V for my wife. She still has it. That's 8 years ago. But all the rest were used cars because we knew that we wanted to put money away. We lived comfortably. We lived very comfortably when I was working as a pharmacist, but we were saving. We were saving. The kids didn't get the little juice boxes to go to school. We sent them with a thermos of Kool-Aid. I mean, that kind of stuff, and the whole family was kind of put into this thing. Now, when we own the pharmacies, it changed. Now, all of a sudden, we were able to live a lot more comfortably off the profits of the pharmacies. And in the Burghardt family, there is a great split between my 2 older daughters, who grew up in the savings day, and my son, who grew up in the pharmacy ownership days. Because based upon the difference in the slight difference in the difference in the lifestyle. And again, we didn't go overboard. Again, we only bought one brand new car. And a part of that, though, I think, is as you're preparing, is that if you've been saving, and I don't call it scrimping, or I'll call it scrimping for 23 years in order to buy a pharmacy, after you buy the pharmacy and now you have enjoying the profitability of it, that attitude, that way of life has become somewhat ingrained. And you know where that becomes important? For the end game. Because when you start making the profit from the pharmacy, if you and spend all the profit after Uncle Sam gets their part, if you spend all the profit, you're not going to have anything for the end game. And so that process of saving for the pharmacy now, as you own your pharmacy, all right, improve your lifestyle a little bit. Yeah, you can start doing different things. You can take maybe that extra trip a year that you normally would not have taken. You may play that extra round or 2 or 3 or 4 rounds of golf that you wouldn't have played. But enjoy it somewhat. You've earned it. That's the important thing. But remember, the end game, you're going to retire sometime. And you want to make sure that you have enough to retire at a fairly early age. That's the thing. Now, let's see. Now, after the sale, we talked about the end game. You have to sit down with your financial advisor and your spouse and your family and whoever else you think is significant and determine how much do you need to retire comfortably. And all of us who are at that stage have done that exercise. If all of a sudden you've owned the pharmacy for 10 years and you want to retire and you realize, my gosh, I've taken all the profitability out of the pharmacy and I've spent it all, guess what? You're not going to be able to have as good a retirement as if you've continued the savings type of a thing. Right now, when you take the combination of what we saved at the pharmacy through all those years of ownership, and we only owned it for what, 13 years, plus what we sold it for, bad English, what we sold it for, minus what Uncle Sam took away, we're able to live as comfortably now, maybe even a little bit more comfortably now than when we owned the pharmacy. Because now we know what the end game is. Now I've supplemented a little bit. I'm not fully retired. I'm not ready to hang up my counting tray yet. I'm too young to. I can't play enough golf. There's not so much golf you can play. So I still work a couple days a week, just to kind of keep my hand in it, get me out of the house. Remember, my wife had the house for 33 years, and I wasn't there. So she owned the house, and all of a sudden I show up, and it's like, this is not going to work out. So I had to stay out there in the community and do a little bit of work on it too. That's the financial preparation. What I'm going to say now was true in the 1970s, the dark ages, when I went to school. True then, it's true now. Pharmacy schools do absolutely nothing to prepare prospective pharmacists for business. Pure and simple. If you want to do it, you got to do it on your own. In my senior year, I needed 3 extra credits, so they happened to be offering 3 one-hour seminar courses. One was accounting. The other was management and human relations. The other one was marketing and advertising. And that was it. 3 electives. I just needed to pick up something to make me a full-time student. And got a little bit of that. I picked up my MBA on top of that too. But how do you get that? How do you get that business background? Where do you pick it up? Say you're working for a chain or in a hospital. Ask for management responsibility. Is there something I can do from a management point of view? Are there tasks that you want me to do? Again, during your rotation, same thing. When you're in the community pharmacy setting, or even in a chain setting, if you get the right preceptor, ask them about business. Ask them what they do for management. What does it take to be a manager? And start, again, as Jim said, be the sponge. Absorb that knowledge from them. You look at online MBA programs. They will give you a lot of knowledge. It'll teach you a lot about business, how much you actually use of your MBA once you get out there. I don't know, it just takes up a couple more lines on my resume at this point. But what it did is for somebody who's coming completely business naive out of pharmacy school, an MBA program was great because it taught you a lot about business right away. If you happen to be working in a setting that's a Mckesson customer in one of your rotations, ask the owner if he gets you on Health Mart University. Is it something that Mckesson offers? If these modules are in there, if you take time to go through them, you'll get yourself up to speed on business real quick. It's called Health Mart University. They are excellent. Again, if you're in rotation, get a chance to ask for a profit and loss statement, balance sheet, have the owner maybe explain those to them. When I had my community pharmacy management rotation, we used an actual profit and loss statement from one of the pharmacies, and that was our basis of going through. You're lucky to have me because I forced the students to come in 45 minutes early before we opened. We sat down. We did 45 minutes of coursework before every day of work. So just a little bit like Hitler, I guess. And the other thing is you can just read. There are things. Believe it or not, I know everybody's got this technology. There are things called libraries. And you can go in there and get a library card, and you can check out books, and you can actually take them home and you can read them. And it's like business for dummies, accounting for dummies, things like that, marketing for dummies. Books like that are out there, this kind of the self-help type of books. They are out there, and you can pick up a lot of knowledge. But okay, I think I'd be open up for questions. We didn't talk too much about the end game. End game. How do we get out of it? We had an opportunity. We waited December of 2013. My son was a senior at the University of Florida, getting ready to graduate in chemical engineering. He accepted a position with the Springer Joe Corporation doing oil and natural gas exploration in North Dakota. Not essential for you all to know, except for us, that was an indication to us that our son, my son, had decided not to go down the route of going into pharmacy school, because my business partner and I decided that we were not going to do anything until we had a clear indication that one of our children did not want to take over the business. And my business partners didn't want to, and mine, of course, I have an accountant, a chemical engineer, and a elementary school teacher. So none of them happen to be pharmacists, but anyway. So we decided we're going to start this process, and being like all good people who were enjoying life, we procrastinated. Then a couple of months later, within a 1 week period, 2 different individuals from 2 different chains, won't mention their names, but they're usually on opposite corners, came into our store and made an offer to buy us out. Good offer. We looked at the evaluations through NCPA, through the Mckesson website, kind of do all the formulations, come up how much is it worth. Their number was real good. The chains were real good, and we turned it down for 2 reasons, 3 reasons. 3 reasons. First one was the age of our. Jim mentioned we had a second pharmacy, St. John's Pharmacy. We had a junior partner in there. His oldest child was getting ready to start college. My youngest was finishing college, so he would have gotten he would have got a portion of the proceeds, probably not enough to sustain him. Second reason, they wanted to know about our staffing and how much we paid them, our technicians and all. Clear indication that they were getting ready to cut them. It wouldn't have been right for our employees to have done that to them, which is a consideration when you sell out. What do you leave behind? Do you just kind of wash your hands and say, sorry, I'm done, forget we ever did business together? And the third thing is what we call it was an exercise that they started, it was called the whatabouts. Because they started saying, well, what about your delivery customers? What about your charge account customers? What about your compounding customers? What about your people you're doing your med packing for? Because these are all lines of business. These are lines of business that are essential for community pharmacy. It's what makes us different. It's what makes us unique. It's what makes people come to us for this type of stuff. And they don't fit into the cookie cutter mode of the chain stores. So that what they were going to do is they weren't as valuable. Those customers, those prescription volumes weren't as valuable to the chains as they are to us. So the whatabouts was going to take this initial price that was real good, and it was going to drop it down here. So we said, no, thank you. Turned to our junior partner and said, well, listen, I'll tell you what, why don't you buy us out of the store you have, and then we'll go find ourselves our own partner, or somebody else to buy out of the big store. He said, no, I don't like that idea. It took us by surprise. And because then, not as much as what he said next is that, the reason I don't want to do that is because while you are looking for somebody, you're competing with me. He was absolutely right, very, very astute on his part. He said, I want to buy both of them out. So now we had our end game. We got him in with Mr. Springer. There's a bank called Live Oak Bank. So the affiliation with the NCPA. It's founded by pharmacists, run by pharmacists, solely for the acquisition and sale of pharmacies. They got together, all this happened, and then January 1, when the new year kicked in, I was unemployed. And here I stand. So, on that note, questions? Anybody awake? Oh, okay. Questions? Yes, sir.
So
that wasn't a scratch of the head.
No, that was a question. So you ended up going the saving route to buy your own pharmacy instead of contacting a lender or any sort of financial institutions?
As Jim said, there are so many different ways of doing it. When we purchased the pharmacy, the prior owner did not want a lump sum. He did not want the whole thing. His advice was that he wanted to take, let me back this up. He wanted a lump sum for the assets, and the assets meaning basically the inventory, the drug cost, and then the value of the business, which is called the goodwill, which is how much the name is worth, the prescription file, and stuff like that. He wanted to pay it out over 10 years. So our savings, my partner and I's savings, paid off the inventory. We then had to use, then the profitability every year paid off going forward until we got to be honest with you, we got to a point where this guy was a real pain in the neck. After 4 years, we had accumulated enough profit. We just said, "Here, have all of it." And then he said, "Well, yeah, what about?" And we said, "Well, what about? There's nothing in the contract that says we can't." So we did that. But yeah, normally you would have to go ahead and put a lump sum down and then get some more. When we sold our pharmacy, we wanted it all up front, and we didn't get away with it. We still have a promissory note that we're holding.
One more thing, in regards to the lender itself, most banks, as you know, if you were going to go into a big box bank right now and say, you know what, I need X, they look at you and go, what kind of collateral do you have? Okay, right? If you're looking at a drugstore, what's their collateral?
The inventory.
It's literally the inventory, maybe the fixtures, maybe the furniture, that's it. They don't view the prescription files as collateral.
Okay.
Live Oak Bank, and there's a couple of others that are run by pharmacy people, they understand the true value of pharmacy. So that's why it's important, that we're dealing with banks like that to really understand, what pharmacies are really worth. Okay?
So I guess as a follow-up question, so when you were starting your pharmacy, and there's been a lot of mention, I guess, about buying pharmacies from existing people that are retiring and transitioning ownership, is that kind of the preferred model of doing this as opposed to trying to open your own brand new pharmacy and enter the market?
It's a great question, and that's
I'll let you answer.
$50 million question.
I'll let you handle that, and I'll give you my perspective.
Okay, sure.
You lead.
In my mind, it's always preferred to have an existing business that you have an opportunity to buy. Simple, because you've got this base of business that you can rely on while you're taking your business model, flopping it over into his, and then managing through that, building on that business. It's different than you're going into this brand new business, and you may have a great business plan, but you've got this learning curve. You've got this curve that it's going to take a while. It's normally a year before you get to that point where you break even, and maybe a year until you get to that point where you're filling 100 scripts a day. So I've always opted for, if there is an option for your buying an existing business, do it. Now, will it cost you any more money than it would to start up your own pharmacy? It depends. The average pharmacy, according to NCPA, the average pharmacy top line did pretty close to $4 million in 2014. That pharmacy would, if you were selling, rule of thumb right now, a $4 million pharmacy, let's see, 20%, $800,000, plus he's probably got about a $200,000 inventory, he'd sell for about $1 million, okay? If you go to a lender, one of those lenders I mentioned earlier, that lender is going to say, I need 20% equity payment. I need some skin in the game from you. So 20% of $1 million is $200,000, okay? And that's literally out of pocket then, what it would cost you to buy that $4 million top line pharmacy. If you were to open up your own pharmacy, is there lending available? Yes, but they're not as anxious. There's so much more risk to a startup pharmacy that it's not a slam dunk. I would say that out of every 10 candidates who do have good, strong business plans, they'll probably lend to 3 or 4 of those, okay? Whereas if you're buying an existing business, it's unusual for them to pass on lending, okay? But my point is that when you open up your new business, it's liable to cost you a couple of $100,000 just for opening inventory, the fixtures, you know, getting this existing building ready for a pharmacy, it's probably going to cost you $200,000. So your real out-of-pocket expense isn't going to be a whole heck of a lot different.
So it's like a don't reinvent the wheel kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, where are startups, before you give your explanation, before, startups can make a whole lot of sense under certain scenarios. Let's say, for example, one of my favorites is, I call it a backfill pharmacy. One of those chains, why do we always hate to mention their names? If a Walgreens or a CVS go in and buy an independent, and it may be the only independent in town, to me that's a tremendous opportunity. I would get on the phone as soon as I heard that, and I would get on the phone to talk to one of my clients who I know is interested in buying a pharmacy or opening up a new one, and I would say, I got an opportunity for you. Just heard that this successful independent just sold to Walgreens. So what happens in situations like that is most of those customers of that independent are not going to like the fact that they now all of a sudden are forced to have to go to Walgreens.
So there's a void to fill there.
There's a huge void in that
The
marketplace.
pre-existing client base.
And that independent, that new independent, now can move in next door, across the street, as close as they possibly can. Hire the technician, hire the front end clerk, have some faces of the customer. You do that, and I'm telling you, we've seen examples of where you can retain 60, 70% of the business that that independent had in a very short period of time.
Didn't that happen in Stark?
With Madison Street?
Yeah.
I think yes.
Yes.
They
In
were a
Stark.
startup pharmacy
Yeah.
that came from, and you're absolutely right.
It happened in Stark.
Absolutely right. And there's another one on the East Coast that I always use as an example in Delray Beach, where this one was really cute too, because it was CVS that was involved. They went in and bought this pharmacy called Kings Point Pharmacy that was maybe one of the top independents in the Southeast, not just in Florida.
Oh, wow.
And when they did and we found out about it, we called an independent who owned 3 pharmacies, and he was like 25 or 30 miles away. And he knew this store intimately, knew the market, says, I'm in. So we started, and one night we found through our checking with commercial real estate brokers, found that there was a laundromat who had just moved out from the strip center that this pharmacy was in.
Oh, wow.
So he got the space, negotiated a deal, got the deal. We found him some fixtures that a chain store had just closed down because they were building a new one. He bought those fixtures for like 10 cents on a dollar. Hired the technician, hired the front end clerk, because now remind you, this was only out for like a day or two. It was public knowledge. So this was very quick-like. And we had that pharmacy, we were setting up that pharmacy. I'll never forget it because the CVS executives showed up to Kings Point Pharmacy. And here we were literally right around the corner, and they look over and they see the sign for the independent pharmacy. And they're looking inside the window like, what the hell did we just do? You know, they knew that they bought themselves a pig in a poke because we were going to take all of that, and he did. And to this day, he's been very successful. And that was 12 years ago. Okay, so.
I am a big proponent of buying into an existing, simply because unless it's a real unique situation, which was in our case, when we bought it, the old owner is usually like me. They're not really ready to retire. And that person has been the face, or those persons have been the face of that pharmacy. The longer you can keep that person there,
The easier the transition.
easier to transition. There are some of our customers at Flagler Community Pharmacy that don't even know that we've sold the pharmacy yet. Yeah, because both my partner and I are each working there one day a week. So you come in Wednesday, Joe's there, Friday, Danny's there. Okay, well they've hired this new pharmacist, and the whole way the pharmacy operates. The new owners was smart enough; he didn't change anything. Personnel the same, pricing the same, everything the same, except he's there more. So people just have made the assumption that we were starting to kind of wind down. And Jim alluded to, I forgot to mention, that whole thing of the 401k. When you sell the pharmacy, that pharmacy is your 401k, folks. The combination of what you get for what you've saved from your proceeds every year, plus the value that you get from that pharmacy when you sell it, that's your 401k. That's your baby. And it's, as I said, I've seen some things that the new owner has done differently behind the scenes that the customers have not seen. And I want to tell you, it is tough not to say anything. Because it is no longer your baby. That was your life. That was your identity. That was your 401k plan. But then all you got to do is say, okay, remember, it's not mine. I'm just helping them out and stuff like that. Give you some numbers. 'Cause I ran them through this morning. The average pharmacy, whatever that is, $4 million in sales a year. Average profit margin, 3%. Who can do the math on that? It's about how much? $120,000 in profit a year from profit. Add that to the owner's salary. Owners usually pay themselves a salary roughly about $100,000 a year. 110,000. Because a lot of them are coming from the chain background, so they're used to getting that, and they have a lifestyle that's based upon that. So now you're talking about 100,000 and 120 is what? 220,000. It's close to $250,000 a year. So what I will throw out to you, kind of a pure mercenary point of view, pure capitalist, if you want an opportunity to take all of the skills that you're learning here at the College of Pharmacy, put them into use. If you want to be your own boss, remember Jim talking about being nimble, being able to change that stuff, and if you want to be a millionaire, independent pharmacy ownership is for you. And I said, I don't mean that in a mercenary. You will be able to, if you run an average pharmacy that does average over the course of your lifetime, you'll be able to retire age 55, age 60, very comfortably. You'll be able to do things that you can do whatever you want with those proceeds. One thing, and I'm not bragging, but we were able to increase the amount we gave to charity. We were blessed to have this opportunity, so we felt compelled to give a lot of it back. But the things you can do, you can pass it on to your children, you can pass it on to your nieces, your nephews, anything like that. But the opportunity is there. You're not going to have that opportunity if you're working for a hospital. You're not going to have that opportunity if you're working for a chain. You're going to be kind of capped on that. There's unlimited opportunities there. And sitting out there. And I owned the pharmacy for 13 years. There are pharmacy owners out there who are owning the pharmacies for 20, 30, 40 years.
Okay, we've got to stop because some of these guys have class in 3 minutes. Some of them have already left. Okay. But it's silly then because there's some goodies over here in the box that you guys can split up between you, please. The stuff that was left over from career days yesterday, pens and lip balm and stuff like that. And there's some brochures here from Mark's ownership that I want you to have to kind of keep and refer to from time to time. Remember, keep networking. Thank you for all of your time. Let's do this again.
Yeah,
thank you, buddy.
Give them a round of applause. Thank you. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. We're going to put this on our YouTube page so you can share with your friends. Make sure to get a brochure and some pins, and I think there's stuff in there and some other stuff. But Trey is going to send out a interest form tonight for elections that are coming up on the 19th, so keep your eye out for that. And also, we might be sending out a last email before the end of the semester, so be aware for that. Thanks everyone.